as the great rapper Meek Mill said on his song 1 a.m. Lil Fish, they call me Lil Fish because I be swimming in that pussy. Listen to that song 1 a.m. by Meek Mill. You will not be disappointed. So I welcome you to another episode of Dank Times, Danker Thoughts with me, Angelo. I believe this is episode 119. Good Christ, let's keep the good times a-rolling. I had a pretty busy weekend. I had friends come over on Friday to Casa de Grosso, where we smoked a tree's worth of marijuana, and we watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I cannot recommend it highly enough to you. That movie is so good, so amazing, and so unique that honestly you would be a fool if you have the opportunity to watch it and you say nay. It's probably, and I have to do a little bit more thinking about this before I make this hot take, but fuck it. As of right now, I can comfortably say that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the best movie I've seen so far this year, and I don't think it's even close. It was basically a better version of Doctor Strange 2 and Spider-Man, No Way Home or Far From Home or Homecoming, whatever that fucking last Spider-Man movie was. Everywhere, Everything, All at Once, and I'm butchering the name. I don't know what comes first, Everywhere or Everything. But the movie is superb. I have heard literally not one person or critic say to me that the movie was just okay. Everybody says it's mind-bogglingly good. So I had my doubts that it could reach that upper echelon of expectations that I put on it. I remember when that trailer came out a couple months or a year ago, I thought, ooh, this looks interesting. And then the reviews started to come out from people that I hold in high esteem, their cinema opinions, and I couldn't wait to watch it. I did not even know it was in the theaters at the time. And then it's been available on Prime for some time, but I have a hard time spending more than like $5 or $6 renting a movie. I don't know why. I'm a cheap fuck. What do you want from me? So I thought, all right, let me send the trailer to my buddies that were coming over Friday, see if they were interested. If so, I would rent it and watch it. And that's exactly what we did. And like I already said, all three of us were blown away. Did it help that we were stoned to the gills and enjoying some adult beverages? Sure, I'm sure that helped. But I could follow the movie along pretty well. And it was such like a mind-expanding, orgasmic experience that I really wish I was able to watch it a second time before the expiration expired. But what are you going to do? I'm sure it'll be streaming free here eventually. So if you get the chance, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, or Everywhere Everything All at Once, whatever the fucking movie's called. You know what? I literally have IMDb open. I could look it up here. I'll tell you exactly what it is. Is it Everything? No. So it's everyone. No, it is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Okay, there you go. But speaking of movies, the new trailer for Black Panther 2 dropped, and I'm not sure the last time I sobbed during and after a trailer. Now let's pump the brakes here and hit rewind. Personally, I think the original Black Panther movie was extremely overhyped, and I believe a lot of people, mostly white cucks, said the movie was a lot better than it actually was. I saw that movie in 4D with my coworkers during a work excursion. And it was crazy. If you guys ever seen a 4D movie, the chairs move, you get hit in the face with water if it's applicable. When there's a gunfight, your seat kind of vibrates where the bullets are hitting the other people. There's something that shoots smell out to you, so you have this aroma. It's a little bit too much, but it was still fun. But after I saw Black Panther, I was like, yeah, that was probably a solid B- to B movie. It was really enjoyable. The story was good. The acting was great. But the actual plot itself was very uniform and very stereotype and cliche of those kind of superhero Marvel movies. The villain was awesome, but spoiler. Then again, if you haven't seen Black Panther by now, go fuck your mother. But yes, them killing Killmonger, who in my opinion is a top 3 Marvel villain of all time. So I thought that the movie was overhyped, and then it got nominated for all those Oscars, and I thought, really? There's so many better black cinematic movies that you can honor than Black Panther being a superhero movie, but whatever, I digress. I enjoyed the movie. I understand why it was important culturally and why it was a breakthrough in a lot of ways. But you strip away all that shit and just look at it as a movie, it's slightly above average to me. However, my longtime listeners of this podcast can probably remember the teary mess I was after Chadwick Boseman died, and I paid him a little respect and a little bit of in memoriam on whatever episode of my podcast that was. And I'm not going to go into it again, but in summary, I held Chadwick Boseman in high esteem. I thought that he was on a path to becoming my generation's Denzel Washington, or dare I say, even Sidney Poitier. I saw something in Chadwick Boseman from a cinemaphile's perspective. I thought some of his roles were, much like Black Panther, a little overhyped. Like the Jackie Robinson movie, I thought the movie was not that good. He was good in it, but the movie itself wasn't that good. And as his career progressed beyond Black Panther and beyond, who else did he play? Thurman Marshall? Did he play Thurman Marshall? There was another big movie that I saw of his where, again, I was like, he's pretty good, but he's not like A+ good the way that I've been hearing. And as his career progressed up until his unfortunate, untimely death, the movies were not that good. The Spike Jonze movie about the Vietnam War guys getting back together in flashbacks, that movie sucked. And then there was that one where he was like a detective or a cop and he had to like go undercover or something. I don't remember even the movie, but it sucked balls, and he was actually pretty bad in it. But he was in the stages of really bad cancer chemotherapy at that time. So either way, my point is that, in my opinion, if he had about another 10 years of acting growth, I could see him becoming, like I said earlier, this generation's Denzel Washington, because I hold Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman and Sidney Poitier, and I'm sure I'm forgetting other black actors, but I hold them in very much high esteem because of their time coming up. You just did not see specifically male black actors given the good roles that the Morgan Freemans and the Denzels and the Sidney Poitiers were given. And I could see that positive shift was due to them. And we would not have had a Chadwick Boseman or a Michael B. Jordan without those legends. And I really did see something in Chadwick Boseman that I just couldn't wait to see him mature in a sense. And when he died, I thought, fuck, man. I didn't feel that way since Heath Ledger. I felt the same thing with Heath Ledger. When he died, it was a shock to the system. So I tell you all this because I was hesitantly excited about the Black Panther sequel, because even though I said that the original Black Panther was overhyped and I didn't think it was all that good, I still enjoyed it, and I was still looking forward to the sequel because I like the Marvel movies. I'm a fucking dork. What do you want from me? And I applaud Marvel for coming out right away after Chadwick Boseman's death and saying we are never going to recast T'Challa's character in Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman is T'Challa. He is Black Panther. He is that Black Panther. We're not going to recast. We're not going to do CGI or a hologram or like the awful Star Wars movies did with their dead stars. This is stupid. Fuck you, Star Wars. When I heard that they weren't going to recast or do CGI or anything, I thought, well, this is excellent, but what the fuck are they going to do? Because Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther was an integral part of this next phase of Marvel movies. God, I feel like such a fucking dork, but they're so successful. I know I'm not the only person that enjoys the Marvel movies, so I'm not going to apologize for being invested emotionally in these movies. So when I finally saw the trailer, the music alone made me feel like I was being haunted by some crying thing. But it was a comfort feeling, but still it was sad. It was a sad scored trailer. And in the midst of the mourning in that trailer for T'Challa's Black Panther, you had Angela Bassett just scream out. The only dialogue in the movie that I can remember, I'm getting teary-eyed, by the way, just thinking about it, when she's saying, like, look, I am the most powerful person in the most powerful country in the world, and I've lost everyone. What else do you want from me? Something to that equivalent. And that's when I broke the initial time. And then you kind of see Marvel's Aquaman. What the fuck is that character's name? Namor. Which, by the way, side note, I'm liking what they're doing with Namor because let's face it, DC beat Marvel to the guy in the water punch. And the boys did too. Between Aquaman and the Deep, Marvel was kind of shit out of luck with their aquatic hero slash villain. And I did not know this because back in my day, Namor or Nymor, whatever his gay name was, really was like a D-list character. So I didn't know much about him. To me, he just looked like an elf that had like a fish scale leotard, and that was his deal. He would ride whales, but he was a poor man's Aquaman, even though technically Namor was first, and actually I think Namor was the first Marvel character. But anyway, I digress. Him and Human Torch. Between my childhood and now, apparently they gave that whole character of Namor Aztec background. So instead of living in Atlantis deep underwater, it's actually being portrayed as Atlantis was the city of whatever the city of the Aztecs were called. And I guess they're tying it in with some other movies, mainly the Eternals. But anyway, I like the idea of making Nymor, whatever his fucking name is, an Aztec character. So they're all Latin. They believe in the Jaguar god compared to the Wakandans who believe in Black Panther god. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. The point is, I was enjoying the trailer so much between the music and Angelo Bassett, and then they just kept building and building and building. And the last 30 seconds of that trailer with the drum beats and the chanting, and then you finally see who I think is the new Black Panther is Shuri, because how could she not be? I just started weeping. And this isn't the first time I've cried in a trailer. In fact, recently, the Avatar sequel trailer made me cry, but mainly because of the music and just the beautiful colors in that movie. But I didn't have the same emotional response to the characters as I do the Black Panther and Marvel. So whoever's been making these trailers lately between Black Panther and Avatar sequels, holy shit, your boy is sobbing like a motherfucker watching trailers. So don't quit your day job, trailer makers. You're doing a hell of a job. And so moving on to another show that I am kind of my current obsession is the HBO Max and CNN documentary series about Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. And it's directed by, what the hell is his name? Ethan Hawke. Now, on a personal level, I have always held Paul Newman in high esteem, and I always thought he should have been the poster child for America, not John Wayne, that racist, bigoted fuck. But Paul Newman has always seemed to me to be classy without being smug or elitist. Again, Newman's own hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions worth of charitable donations. That alone shows me that he had a good head and heart. And how could you not enjoy his movies? I'm not going to go through the list of Paul Newman movies, but I remember watching Cool Hand Luke, The Hustler, Butch Cassidy, and The Sundance Kid, and just falling in love with Paul Newman and his gorgeous blue steel eyes. And I never really knew his wife. My parents, being old fucks, they of course knew who Joanne Woodward was. She was at one time seen as the best American actress for, I would say, a couple of years in the 60s. But I did not know much about her because Paul Newman is such an iconic cinema character and a philanthropic character. And really, he's part of the zeitgeist of American culture, I would say. And Joanne Woodward, unfortunately, just wasn't. It could be because of the patriarchy. But the fact remains, I did not know much about Joanne Woodward. And so HBO and CNN released this documentary series, and the trailer just blew me away in excitement, and I could not wait to start it. And I'm 2 episodes in, and the series is 6 episodes, and it's living up to the hype. I thought I knew Paul Newman quite well because I went down a rabbit hole of obsession over him while I was in college, like I did with most actors of that generation, the Marlon Brandos, the Robert Redfords, the James Deans, and the list goes on and on and on. But I realized I did not know much about him and his life. I did not know he was married before Joanne Woodward. I did not know that he had kids from that previous marriage. I did not know that he was kind of, not blacklisted, but frowned upon in the acting community in the early days. He was seen as a poor man's James Dean and Marlon Brando. I did not know this. And I did not know that Joanne Woodward had just that momentous, cosmic rise to superstardom so quickly. I had no idea. that at first, when they got married, she was the star. She was coming off of, I think, at least one Oscar win, if not another. So, anyway, let me wrap up this pontification I'm doing here and saying, if you're a fan of the golden era of cinema, which I think is the 50s and 60s, or no, the golden age, or whatever, I don't know. My point is, if you're a fan of old Hollywood, I would recommend to you that you start the series The Last Movie Stars. You will not be disappointed. Just the interview style that the director, Ethan Hawke, is doing, which I don't want to give too much up. Because, well, I can give you the tagline here, which is it follows a celebration of Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman's lives. So that doesn't do it justice. There's so much more to it than that. So at the very least, watch the trailer. Don't be a lazy asshole. Oh, wow, I got completely sidetracked there. I was talking about my weekend. So that was on Friday when my buddies came over and we smoked the trees and watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. On Saturday, we held our fajita night extravaganza, which back in the day we would have it probably once every 2 or 3 months. But since the pandemic, we're lucky to have 3 to 4 a year. So we haven't had one of these in a couple of months. So it's always a big extravaganza. Now, not everyone could make it as usual, but we still had our copious amounts of booze and marijuana available, where we played Frisbee for a couple hours, we chit-chatted, listened to Dank tunes, had some amazing food, smoked and drank like kings, and one of my friends had never seen Goodfellas, so we put Goodfellas on without realizing how late it was, and about midnight, we were about halfway through the movie, and I was like, guys, I gotta get home. But it was really fun to see some of my friends that I don't get to see very often. Some of the people in that group I do see more often than others. But it was also a good time for me to chit-chat with the group about a upcoming Idaho trip. Now, my longtime listeners can probably recall that the last 2 years I've been trying to go to this yearly event at one of my best friend's family's cabin in Hope, Idaho. And the first year was 2020. I did not go in 2020 because of COVID concerns. This was before the booster shots, and I didn't want to take the risk. And in fact, most people in that group did not go, although more than I thought ended up attending. And then last year, I was on my way to go, but then the day before we were meant to go, I got a stomach virus. I thought it was COVID. I drove to urgent care and got a speedy COVID test, and it turns out I was negative on that, but that I was showing symptoms of a flu virus, so I had to miss it, which sucked again because I was so excited to go. So now, third time's the charm. I now know when I'm going, and I had to admit to myself that at this stage of my life, I am accustomed to certain modernities, if that makes any sense. Like, I need air conditioning. I need a bidet. I need my comfortable mattress. I need my cat. You know, I need things of modernity to keep me happy and sane, or else I get uncomfortable, nauseous, anxious, and just unhappy. The vibe is not cool, all right? I'm not bussing here. So most of the guys are going between 7 or 8 days, and that is way too long for your boy here. So I decided to only go for 4 days, and that's even pushing it. I wanted to go for 3 days, but I thought, it's about a 6-hour drive. So of those 3 days, really of 1 day of nothing but driving. So let's go for 4 days. Luckily, I did have a few friends that are going on a shortened time frame like me, so I'm going with them. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be in the middle of August. I've been looking forward to going to this cabin for years. And by the way, I missed another trip out to that cabin, I would say 8 or 9 years ago, when I was involved with my Japanese lady friend at the time, and I was saving money for the Japan trip, and I actually couldn't take time off because I was holding all that time off for the Japan trips. Between money and time off issues, I could not go, but that was a while ago. I had gone to the cabin a few times back in high school and college, so I have fond memories of that place. So it was just great. I just can't wait to go. I'm very excited. I have to go some shopping for some things because, surprise, surprise, your boy is not a camper. I don't really have the necessary items or tools needed. And I should back up and say it's not really like camping. We're going to be in my friend's cabin where there's going to be couches and beds and shit, but there's not enough for everybody. So I think people are going to need blow up mattresses or like nice pads and everything. So to me, that's slumming. To me, not having my Casper mattress and my air conditioning and my nice cat purring next to me, and then if I have to get up and use the potty, I have a nice bidet right next to the bed. I don't know, I need those things. I like those things. And the thought that I won't be around my house plants or I won't be able to watch my YouTube stuff because I have such an old man routine. I wake up, I do my things in order, and whenever I have to miss my routine due to something, I don't get anxious or nervous or depressed or freaking out or anything, but it definitely weighs on me. Like I have to get home and catch up on my YouTube clips, or I have to catch up on my houseplant trimming, whatever. It's nonsense. It's because my life is so boring and mundane that even small things seem important. And I'm aware of these things, so I try to push those thoughts of freaking out aside. And that's what I'm doing with this trip, because I already was freaking out about, oh my God, I'm going to have 4 days without following my YouTube podcast, my news. I'm going to miss my food. What am I going to do about my houseplants need watering in my yard? And, all this bullshit. And finally I was like, Angelo, shut the fuck up. It's not the end of the world that you're going to missing things that you're used to because of the pandemic. And you're going to be fine. You're an adult. You're a man. Chill, baby. So once I kind of got over that, and it was embarrassing that I was feeling such anxiety about something that I know I'm going to enjoy, but I think it's really because I am alone, and when you're alone for as long as me in this house that's turning into a mausoleum, I swear to Christ, that you do get used to doing the same things. You get used to repetition, routines. I used to make fun of my parents for that, and now that I'm 35 and I feel like I'm 60 or 70 sometimes with my boomer AARP card-carrying bullshit that I always seem to have around me. But it is what it is, people. Until I meet someone that I feel safe inviting into my life, I am all for making some necessary changes. But anyway, that was Saturday. And then Sunday, of course, I visited the old man for a few hours, helping him out. I cleaned 2 of his giant windows, and I pruned and trimmed and fed about 20 of his house plants, and he was cleaning the bases. It was a big ordeal, but the old man just can't do things anymore. He can't really bend down at all anymore without the fear of falling. So forget about carrying and climbing up a ladder. So that pretty much killed most of my Sunday, which is fine. I don't mind helping out the old man. But yeah, I had a pretty full, busy, exhausting weekend. I must have smoked 3 acres worth of marijuana. And your boy's not a heavy drinker like back in the day, but I will say on Saturday of that fajita night, I had 5 or 6 Modelos. I don't know what it is, but there's something about Mexican and I think some Asian beer that just hits the spot when it's like 80 degrees or higher. By the way, we're in a heat wave right now in Washington State, so a Modelo or a Tsingtao sounds pretty goddamn good right about now. But there's something about those imported beers that just hits you to a degree that American beers just have never been able to duplicate. Like, I have had so much piss disgusting American beer that has never felt good drinking it, even when it's supposed to be good at a college party or high school party or on the boat or something. But you have a good Negro Modelo or standard Modelo or Tsingtao or what's the other beer? Singapore, not Singapore, that's the country, asshole. But there was another Asian beer that's really good. I think it's Japanese. But anyway, my point being, it just tastes a certain way under certain circumstances, like a nice sunny 80 to 90 degree day that no other beer has ever tasted. And by the way, I brought this theory up to all my guy friends, and most of them agreed with me. So your boy's not that crazy. But anyway, let's move on to the main subject of this podcast episode. I don't think I know how good I have it. Truly. Over the last few years, and my long-standing listeners on this podcast know that more often than not, I get on here and complain about the current state of my dating life. But since I've spent the last few weekends with a pretty wide array of friends, all across the sexual, all across the political, racial spectrum. By the way, it really does pay to have a well-rounded group of friends. I have discovered that amongst my friends, single and married, I am probably in the upper echelon of getting that pussy baby. And I don't feel good about just trying to get a woman to get over to the house just so I could get that sweet, sweet snoo snoo. That's never my intention. I have those thoughts, don't get me wrong, but I kind of beat back those stone age thoughts and try to remind myself you're not looking for just short term pleasure here. If you are, there's plenty of apps and plenty of women out there that will give me that. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a long term, stable relationship. And if we want to have a family and all that garbage, I'm open to it. In fact, depending on the partner, I will be very open to it. In fact, I may even push for a marriage and a family and durka durka durka. However, I think that over these last few years, I have just assumed that a lot of my single male and female friends are having the same experiences I am. And I also assume that the mass majority of my married friends are doing just swell in the marriage department. They are happy, they don't regret anything, blah, 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 blah. But I gotta tell you, the last month I have been around a large, diverse group of friends, and I've all kind of gotten the same answer. Single, male, female, married, it doesn't matter. Everyone is in awe, dare I say jealous, or a little bit of envious of me and my woes of single life. I'm not going to name names here in case any of my friends are listening, but there has been a handful of male friends of mine that I consult with when it comes to women or dating, whatever. And it finally dawned on me that I am kind of in my own little circle here. Not many of my single friends are going out on dates. Really, there's only one, and she's just having a brutal time like me, but at least she has the right mental and emotional capacity, like me, to know that odds are it's not you that are causing the fucking here, it's the other person on the date that's causing the hardships here. But besides her, most of my other single friends maybe go out on 3 dates a year, maybe. I just found out one of my good friends has maybe had 4 partners his entire life. And I have a bunch of male friends that got married kind of young. They were either virgins where they got married or they only had 1 or 2 sexual partners. And they ask me, well, Angelo, how many partners have you had? And I think about it and I say, well, shit, I really don't know that exact answer, but maybe close to 20, 25 maybe. And they can't believe it. They smile, they clap, they want to hear all about it because they say, I don't have any stories to tell, Angelo, but you have tons of stories. And it finally dawned on me that I'm building up this weird mindset based on nothing. I don't have any examples to back up my belief system when it comes to my single friends and my married friends. I truly, truly thought that my single friends that joke about wanting to be single like me, that joke about getting on the dating apps, that joke about how much they dislike their partner, their kids, their job, their family, whatever. But I hear it all the time that I have to start believing them. And so that's not good. And so I have to change my thinking that maybe you do need to be more picky and you do need to be a little bit more choosy of who you settle down with. Maybe I'm not wrong in that department because I have been called very picky. You know, a woman has to be, dare I say, perfect for me to look beyond certain relationship filters, so to speak. I don't know if that makes any sense. But what I'm trying to say is I've been called picky and that I'm too hard to please in that department. But I'm looking at my friends and my family and extended family and coworkers that are married, and not a lot of them are quote unquote happy, or at least how I view them as happy. And that saddens me, but I have to change my outlook on that. Marriage is maybe not what I think it has been. And I have changed my ideology on marriage over the decades, but maybe I have to update it again. And now switching gears to my single friends, I thought for sure I was getting the appropriate amount of poontang being a single guy in this climate and this economy. And it turns out that maybe I'm actually getting a lot more punani than the average individual, which is shocking to me. Because, guys, I get lonely, I get horny, and I get bored a lot. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I have a higher sex drive. I don't know. That's something else. I have never thought that I have a high or higher than usual sex drive. But when I tell some of my guy friends or ladies that are over here that are, in the bedroom, and we're talking about said things, it really does seem that I do have a higher sex drive. I don't know if that means I have more testosterone or what. I don't know. Or maybe that because I have a higher level of confidence than ever before, that seeps down into my pee-wee, and then I just want to stick it in anything wet at any given time. I don't know. But I kind of had a big realization moment that, well, shit. I'm not saying I'm a sexaholic or anything, but I am down to plow more than most of my friends that are my age that are single. And I just never understood that. I never really believed in that until lately. Even my married friends, I assume that because you were married, you have to be having sex at least once or twice a week. And some of my friends are saying we're lucky to have sex once a month or a handful of times a year. And I don't know if I could stay in a marriage where that's happening or not happening. And so I don't know. I kind of had for the lack of a better terminology, kind of a come to Jesus moment these last few weekends. So I think I've been dead wrong about the majority of my thinking when it comes to the sustainability of certain marriages. My outlook on marriage has always been, you're going to have to make adjustments. Your partner's going to have to make adjustments. You're going to have to meet them halfway, and they are going to have to meet you halfway. It's a give and take relationship. It's a democracy, basically. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. In terms of my sex drive, I thought that most guys are like me, masturbating once or twice a day, are constantly on the lookout, constantly checking out women, and maybe I'm not. I don't know. I know that with the rise of microplastics and the shrinking of taints and the rise of micropenises, maybe I am in the top 1% of my generation. I don't have a micropenis. I do have a pretty decent sized taint, I think. And I'm down to clown. I'm not too choosy or picky in that department. And I aim to please. It's not just about me and my release. I usually don't get my release until I make her release a few times, if you catch my meaning. So I have to kind of tweak my thinking on that. And when it comes to my single friends and finding out how much sex they get or how often they're on dating apps or how often they go on dates, I thought for sure that I was the average. Most men and women are like me. They maybe go on 1 or 2 dates a month. They maybe have 1 or 2 sexual partners in a month. Who knows? And it sure seems like I'm on the higher end of that spectrum, and it's just shocking to me, and it kind of saddens me. And it's not something that I am proud about or that I have pride about. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I high five like, yeah, I'm getting pussy and you're not. No. I don't know if my rambling here is making any sense. I just assumed more people were like me, I guess is my summarization of my soapbox here. And it's really not. I don't really have a male friend that I can sit down and talk, guy stuff with, and he can kind of back me up. I can't say, yeah, there was this one girl I had sex with last month, and then there was another one, and we joke about it. When I try to do that with some of my friends, male and female, they say, well, let's see, the last time I had sex was, 3 years ago. No, wait, was it 4 years ago? Or I'm just like, oh, man, that's me in my 20s. I just assumed, and maybe that's the problem, is that I assume. What is that saying? Assuming makes an ass out of you and me or something. And I think I fucked that saying up, but yeah, I guess my outlook on the whole single life, dating life, sex life, everything, I've just been a little bit off. I truly thought that there was nothing special about me and my activities or my outlook, my ideologies on this, and it sure seems like it is, because I've been told by countless women, and again, I'm not trying to sound prideful or narcissistic or that I'm full of hubris or anything like that, but I've been told by numerous women that I was the only guy they met on a dating app that can hold a conversation, that makes them laugh, that actually listens and respects them, asks them questions, and it's not all them doing all the heavy lifting. I actually dress nice. I have good hygiene. I think most women get wet when they see my house and they see that I got my shit together. My house is clean. It doesn't smell. Yeah, I guess that the bar is so goddamn low these days for men. I don't know. Maybe I owe my father a debt of gratitude in that department. He's always had a clean house. His hygiene is always a bit iffy. But even at a young age, my father talked to me like a friend, which I don't think is good, especially when there's a fucking 40-year difference. But I remember in elementary school, he would pick me up from Christian school and immediately ask me about sexual stuff, about parents, about teachers. He would talk about movies or TV show actresses that he wanted to bang. And he was just a very hypersexual person and he had no friends. And so his son was his only outlet. I remember watching movies that I probably should not have been watching, and there was a sex scene and he would talk to me about it. Not like a pervert or anything, but he would say, "Oh, she is fine." Oh, yeah, it reminds me of a girl that I once banged back, and And it was crazy to me because I was in a Christian school all day, and then I would be with a hypersexualized father, and then I get picked up by my mother, who has written off sex and the opposite sex ever since the second divorce. So my mom and my sister just never talked about that stuff. So it was a weird dichotomy growing up, and I don't need to repeat again, but how awful my teenage years and my 20s were when it comes to sex and love and relationships and just my time with women. And it really has only been since I maybe 28, 29 to now, do I have a healthier outlook on everything. But good God, I kind of have to wipe the slate clean, so to speak, and kind of think, well, maybe I have it pretty good in that department. Sometimes I wonder, though, if I'm catching up for lost time. And I don't know if that's healthy or not. Because I don't want to hurt someone so that I can learn something from it. You know what I'm saying? Which I fear I have done in the past. But I don't know if this is making any sense to y'all. But I've been trying to get a single guy's trip going for years. For years. And I feel like if I was 35 and single in the 1990s, along with all my buddies, things would be completely different. We would be going to Hawaii or Vegas or wherever for guys' trips and kind of pussy hounding. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think that's how I was just raised, growing up and consuming 80s and 90s culture and media. It was very sexual thinking. You were supposed to lose your virginity in high school. You were supposed to bang your way through college, and odds are you got it out of your system, and therefore you met the woman of your dreams in your mid-20s, and you started a family by 30. That's kind of how I was raised to think. And so when I wasn't getting girlfriends or getting sex or getting any positive reinforcement from women until, like I said, really up until the last couple of years, it really fucked me up. So I do think that I'm a little bit of a child in this arena, maybe a little bit of arrested development, if you will, because maybe I'm trying to make 2022 1992, if that makes any sense. I don't know if this is making any sense to any of my listeners here, but let me summarize it here by saying this. What I was raised to believe, I never got, whether that be just America overall, with finances, with politics, with religion, who knows, but definitely, I was raised to look at women a certain way, relationships and sex a certain way, and it never came to be, and it very much depressed me. It definitely fucked up my outlook with these things, and it's only until recently have I felt confident in myself to put myself out there, but I still had an outlook that I'm still behind the eight ball, so to speak. But over these last few weeks, really the last month or two, I've discovered how wrong I was on a lot of these fronts when it comes to sex and women and relationships. So I kind of have to start over. So I'm backing off the dating apps a little bit again. I'm turning off notifications, which is a big deal. And I'm just trying to focus on, well, why do I think a certain way? Why am I trying to find a woman to marry or to settle down with? Maybe I should just have fun, so to speak, but keep my eye on the prize, which is a long-term relationship. I don't think I'm going to go on hookups or anything like that because I still don't feel good about that. The few times these last few years that I have had an immediate hookup, I never felt good, and obviously the relationship never worked out because it's not a relationship. You're just bumping uglies. I'm just gonna have to take a different approach, and this is, I think, the fun part of life is changing your outlook on things. You have to be vulnerable, and that can be scary. You almost have to open yourself up for rejection, because I think the only way you can learn is by losing, by not getting what you want. Instead of getting rageful about it and wrathful and angry, and you start blaming the whole opposite sex because of one bad example, you need to just learn from it. I wish most of my single friends, male or female, would listen to that, because I think one or two bad experiences have ruined the opposite sex to so many of my friends and family and coworkers, and it's so sad. And I've had some wildly crazy asshole lady friends. And instead of just assuming, well, then every lady is like this one, I just say, okay, well, this one is a cunt. Let's move on. And hopefully I don't see another cunt. You kind of have to trust your own judgment, which is something also that's new to me. But anyway, don't know if my rambling here made any sense or helped anyone, but it certainly has made my eyes open up a little bit more wide about the reality of 2022 single life. But with that, let's mercifully move on here. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Us Mariner fans knew that the inevitable collapse of the 14-game winning streak would happen. It has to. But god damn it, the fact that we lost to the Houston Astros right away, I can swallow that. But to be swept by the Houston Astros at home over the weekend with beautiful weather and sold-out crowds, it was all just too much of a punt to the cunt for your boy here. And boy, oh boy, suddenly a 14-game winning streak amounts to a 3-game losing streak to your most hated rival. Oh, and by the way, because we got swept by them, we are now 12 games behind them. So we just are not going to catch Houston. You Mariner fans that have your mind up in the clouds, bring it back down, bitch. There's no way in hell it's happening. You need to focus on the wild card. So after losing 3 in a row to Houston, we still are in the playoffs if the season ended today, but now we are relegated to the last team in the wild card standings. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Seattle did beat the Texas Rangers last night, barely. But I think it's important to also call out, we've been shorthanded, more so than usual, in the series against Houston. We did not have Julio Rodriguez in the lineup for that entire series because he hurt his wrist either in the All-Star game or the Home Run Derby or the game leading up to all of that. So, yeah, it was great to see Julio shine in the spotlight and get national rave reviews, but the fact that he couldn't come back and play in a very important series. Now, would we have won all 3 games if we had Julio? No, I don't think so. We were overmatched right away. But I think we could have eked out a win in that 3-game series. It also didn't help that Kyle Lewis was relegated to mop-up duties, either the DH or coming off the bench, because he's still coming back from a multitude of injuries and concussions. Jesse Winker got injured. So I believe the last game of the series and the game last night against Texas, we had 3 utility infielders playing the outfield. I mean, it's crazy. However, I am now seeing that Kyle Lewis, Jesse Winker, and Julio are all back, ready to play the remaining series against Texas. So that's cool. But boy, oh boy, it was just a punch to the mouth seeing the fucking Mariners win 14 in a row, then immediately lose 3 in a row to Houston. And I have to wonder if there was no All-Star break and we played Houston right after, I believe it was Baltimore or Toronto that we played, or the Angels, I don't know. Whoever we won our 14th game against, if we would have played Houston after that, maybe we would have stayed hot. Who knows? It doesn't matter. If ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have fat, juicy asses. I'm still rooting and tooting for the Mariners. Of course I am. Of course. And I just hope that we can win the series against Texas and just keep it rolling. I don't care if we win the division. I just want to make the playoffs. We can get swept in the playoffs. It would be shitty, but I'd be happy with that because we guys God damn it, we haven't been to the playoffs since 2001. It is an embarrassment. But jumping from one embarrassment to the other, the Seattle Seahawks are starting training camp this week. We finally got all of our rookies signed. We put some players on the physically unable to perform list. We cut a University of Washington linebacker, Ben Burr-Kirven, who's been on our team for 4 years, but the poor guy just could not stay healthy, and he was still rehabbing a torn ACL or MCL, I don't entirely know. But that just means pretty soon we're going to get preseason games, and I am so excited to watch the young rookies play and the second-year players play. And, of course, all eyes will be watching the horrific quarterback competition between Geno Smith and Drew Lock, which I hope Jacob Eason can maybe shine a little bit. But, I did get a little tear in my eye today hearing that Chris Carson indeed is being forced to retire because of that horrific neck injury he sustained, I believe, in game 4 or 5 last year. And because the Seahawks are a classy team, we designated him with a failed physical. That way he can still collect the money that was owed to him while he rehabs and tries to get healthy. Because when you have a neck injury and you're a football player, you best not take the chances. Now, true, there is an outside chance that he may play ball again, but I'm hoping that his friends and family and the voices in his head that are not from CTE would tell Chris Carson to stay retired, enjoy your, I think he made almost $10 million in his 5 years with the Seahawks. Enjoy your money, maybe stay around the area to try to get some marketing deals or some trademark deals, whatever, because Chris Carson was a fan favorite. Motherfucker comes out of the 7th round. You don't expect much in the 7th round pick, but this guy sure looked like the heir apparent to Marshawn Lynch, but unfortunately, like so many players like him, he just could not stay healthy. Oh, Chris Carson, you had some amazing, powerful, bruising runs that I will never forget. But this opens the door now for Kenneth Walker, I believe the 3rd? He had the 3rd on his name. Kenneth Walker, the running back the Seahawks drafted this year in the 2nd round. And I'm surprised that we have not signed a veteran running back to back up Rashad Penny, who looks like to be the starter, and Walker, who looks like to be the backup and occasional starter. Because we do have a bunch of jabronis behind those two, but if I was running the team, I would maybe look at signing a veteran running back. Maybe bring back Adrian Peterson. Or what's the jabroni that we brought back a few times? Alex Collins. I'm bringing him back. I think, is Mike Davis a free agent? If not, maybe a Carlos Hyde. You're not looking for these guys to play, 15, 20 carries a game. You're looking just to get them through the preseason, have a little competition for the players behind the starters at that position. I don't see a downside. But instead of signing a running back, I see that we filled Chris Carson's roster spot with like our 6th tight end. So lovely. But what the fuck do I know? I'm only a long-suffering Seahawks fan, and I build dynasty after dynasty after dynasty on Madden. But fuck me, what do I know? But even though this podcast, we've not really talked about any news or anything, I do want to spotlight a very good article that I found on the Washington Post and was shared on the Seattle Times, is where I got it originally. Biden is poised for big wins in Congress. So let's briefly go through the story here, and then we can probably wrap up. Biden poised for big wins in Congress. The first major prescription drug legislation in nearly 20 years. More than $50 billion to subsidize computer chip manufacturing and research. A bill that would enshrine protection for same-sex marriage. After a turbulent stretch in which much of President Joe Biden's legislative agenda seemed to be foundering, I think they meant to say floundering. Foundering? I don't think you can be foundering of anything. The president and his party may be on the cusp of significant wins in Congress that the White House hopes will provide at least a modest political boost. Well, the senile old fool needs it. I think his approval rating is in the low 30s. Most politically resonant is a bill to let Medicare negotiate drug prices, a hugely popular idea that Democrats have been pursuing for more than 20 years. Even before that, possibly within days, Congress is likely to pass a bill providing $52 billion to the U.S. semiconductor industry intended to bolster the U.S. economy and cut China's influence. We're close, so let's get it done, Biden said of the bill on Monday. So much is depending on it. Democrats hope these measures earn a bigger political payoff than, say, Biden's infrastructure law, which seemed to make little impression on voters. Democrats now seem to be hitting a stride when they're about to rattle off 3 meaningful victories in a short amount of time, and for really the first time have an open field to politically gain from that, said Kurt Bardila, a former Republican who now consults for Democrats. Oh, that's a good sign. Fucking moderate scum. On the health care bill, this is stuff everybody generally understands. This is not a complex, nuanced policy situation where you may not feel the benefit for 5 to 10 years. The legislative wins come at a precarious time for the president and congressional Democrats, who have struggled to overcome poor public views of the economy due to persistent inflation, as well as Biden's low approval rating. While several recent polls have shown congressional Democrats slightly improving their standing against Republicans, they remain at serious risk of losing their House and Senate majorities come November. Last-minute glitches could still disrupt the upcoming bills, not least the coronavirus outbreak in the Senate that has temporarily sidelined such key figures as Senators Joe Manchin and Lisa Murkowski. Well, kill them both. Who gives a fuck? Come on, COVID, do your job. And the semiconductor bill is a whittled-down version of a broader bill intended to boost U.S. competitiveness against China that some Republicans opposed. I wonder why. Is it because they're in China's pocket? The Medicare drug bill is especially notable. Despite only covering some medications, since it marks the most significant drug pricing legislation since 2003, which is crazy because that was under George Bush, that war criminal scum. Polls show that healthcare and the cost of prescription drugs in particular consistently rank as a top voter concern. The bill would also provide 2-year extension of Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies that would prevent health insurance premiums from rising significantly for many people. The prescription drug legislation has enormous bipartisan support, with more than 90% of Americans saying in a March 2022 poll that letting the government negotiate with drug companies to get a lower price on Medicare prescription drugs should be an important priority or a top priority for Congress. The semiconductor bill would also provide tens of billions of dollars for the National Science Foundation and regional tech startups. Semiconductors are vital to an array of technological products, and China has been investing billions to make itself the leader in the field. While strategists said the bill would be harder for Democrats to message given its impact will be felt over years and not months, the legislation could eventually help address rising car prices that have in part been fueled by the chip shortage. Biden, who is still in isolation after testing positive for coronavirus last week, appeared during a virtual event on Monday with CEOs and labor leaders to urge Congress to pass the bill. China is moving ahead of us in producing these sophisticated chips, he said. It's no wonder China is watching this bill so carefully and actively lobbying U.S. businesses against the bill. And so you have to wonder, when it comes to the vote, if any Republican or Democrat votes against the semiconductor bill, I hope that would trigger an immediate investigation on those individuals and see if China has them by the balls or the pussy. Meanwhile, a bill that Democrats offered to codify same-sex marriage recently attracted 47 Republican voters in the House, surprising leaders of both parties and igniting a push by Senate Democrats to pass the legislation in their chamber as well. Biden advisors said the bills, if they all pass, will help the president draw a contrast between Democrat agenda and what they portray as an increasingly extreme GOP that is out of step with most Americans on issues ranging from abortion to same-sex marriage to gun control. I would also throw climate change and voting rights in there. But those advisors said they are not yet assuming the bills will become law and caution there is work ahead. Middle-class families need breathing room, and the deficit reduction the healthcare bill accomplishes that and will also help fight inflation, said Andrew Bates, White House Deputy Press Secretary. Well, he's not going to bullshit you. On the chips and same-sex marriage bills, he added, passing a landmark China competitiveness bill will create manufacturing jobs across the country, and standing up for the fundamental rights of every American to marry who they love would be profound bipartisan wins for the country. Still, the various pieces of legislation could help boost Biden's public standing, which has suffered as he had faced one crisis after another over the last year and a half. Biden took office as the coronavirus pandemic was raging and killing thousands of people a day, and he saw much of his coronavirus agenda struck down by the Supreme Court. Since then, he has dealt with record inflation, baby formula shortages, numerous mass shootings, increasingly transmissible coronavirus variants, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a highly conservative Supreme Court that overturned the constitutional right to abortion, curbed the power of the EPA, and rolled back states' abilities to implement gun control measures. Now, you can't blame Biden for the mass majority of those issues, but the problem is he's the leader in charge, and fair or not, he is begrudgingly being held responsible, and he shouldn't be for the mass majority of this. Does he play part in some of it? Sure. How could he not? He is the president of the United States. But can you really blame him for Russia's invasion, or for the mass shootings, or for the baby formula shortage, and for the Supreme Court, and goes on and on and on. So anyone who truly blames Biden for all of this, they need a frontal lobotomy. The legislative victories that Biden has secured so far, a coronavirus relief package, a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that he signed in November, and a modest gun control package that broke a 30-year logjam on the issue. God, we are really a bunch of retards in this country. Have quickly been overtaken by events or have been dismissed by many liberals as too small to meet the moment. Well, that's absolutely true. You have to celebrate what you can celebrate, but Jesus Christ, when you're starving and you get a crumb, you can't celebrate too much. The gun legislation, for instance, came amid a series of mass shootings, including a July 4th massacre at a parade in Highland Park, Illinois, and as a Supreme Court struck down a New York law limiting residents' ability to carry weapons. Both the bipartisan semiconductor bill and the Democratic prescription drug bill would represent major politically significant achievements, but each represents a retreat from far bigger, more sweeping proposals. And Biden's push for voting rights and police reform legislation collapsed, while a much-prized climate measure is on life support. As a result, many Democratic lawmakers, activists, and rank-and-file voters see the pending bills as a bitterly disappointing half-loaf rather than a triumph. This is a very big deal, and if Democrats had tried to just do this, it would be looked as an enormous achievement, said Phil Shalario, who was the head of legislative affairs for President Obama of the healthcare bill. Because it was tied in with other things that aren't going to be included, a lot of people look at what it's not versus what it achieves and what it does for people. Many Democrats said privately that the White House was too quick to set soaring expectations when the party took over the presidency and Congress in 2021, given their historically narrow majorities. I was one of them. The prescription drug bill, for example, could be all that survives of a once sweeping $2 trillion domestic policy package known as the Build Back Better, which some Democrats compared to the New Deal and the Great Society in its size and scope. Democrats scrambled last summer to set the fiscal parameters for Build Back Better, passing a budget that set the stage for $3.5 trillion in new spending that would include affordable childcare and free pre-K, subsidize at-home care for the elderly and disabled, create the largest investment in clean energy and climate programs in American history, expand access to community college, and deliver monthly tax credit payments to the vast majority of American families with school-aged children. But that agenda, we remember this, may have been better suited to a commanding majority than a Senate split 50-50 between the parties, with Vice President Kamala Harris casting tie-breaking votes. Manchin and Sinema regularly threatened to defect. Sinema privately opposed many of the tax increases financing the packaging, and Manchin had a laundry list of fiscal and policy concerns, showing consistent skepticism of the climate provisions and insisting that the bill refrain from financial gimmicks. Oh, those fucking cunts. Don't you just wish that the Democrats had a better approval rating, that they could go to West Virginia and go to Arizona and say, look, people, you elected me as president. Here's my agenda. This is the agenda you voted in, and these scumlords, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, are holding it for ransom. So fuck these people, protest at their homes, egg their cars, let's get shit passed. But maybe I just played too much of a hardball. Maybe I'm an extremist, I don't know, but fuck them if they hold back progress. All right, we're almost done with this long ass story. Those warnings only increased in late 2021 as inflation rose. Shortly before Christmas last year, Manchin publicly announced he could no longer support Build Back Better as a massive policy program. Ugh, just a fucking Scrooge McDuck. Efforts to rebuild the deal faltered again this month when Manchin backed away from supporting any climate or tax provisions, leaving only the health care pieces. Because you see, the dinosaurs don't believe in tax provisions for the working class families, and they certainly don't believe in climate change. Ugh. Even though a fucking asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs, they don't see the metaphor there. The semiconductor bill went through a similar, if less dramatic, shrinking act. The U.S. Innovation and Competition Act had its roots in a bipartisan effort to wholly remake the federal government's approach to supporting science and technology research. With more than $100 billion in funding attached, as well as a passel of trade provisions, the bill passed the Senate in June 2021 with the support of 19 Republicans. But a companion House bill moved much more slowly as Democrats there sought to leverage their own priorities. Fucking idiots. Such as a renewal of federal assistance to workers disadvantaged by foreign trade. That would be nice, but that can fucking wait. An effort to mediate between the two chambers ended in an impasse last month, leading to the stripped down bill set for Senate passage this week. Really, the Democrats are really their own fucking worst enemy. The White House hopes a legislative flurry will rewrite the storyline of Biden's legislative record. The current push has taken on an added urgency because operatives in both parties expect Democrats to lose control of the House and possibly the Senate come November, meaning the window for Biden's agenda is rapidly closing. Party strategists say that if Biden and Democrats capitalize on the passage of the bills and reinforce the message to voters that they are passing policies that help lower their costs, Democrats could help shift the narrative that they have little to show for their unified control of government. Well, they're not unified, cocksucker. These legislative victories would be very significant because they address voters' top concerns, which is inflation and the cost of prescription drugs, said Ben Labolt, a Democratic strategist. That's funny. A Democratic strategist, I don't think the Democrats have strategy. The best thing the president can do, the most effective thing he can do politically, is to make progress on what Americans are saying is a top priority for them. Motherfucker, he's been trying. I will give Biden credit for trying, but I will always shit on Biden for assuming he would just waltz in the presidency and get everything done. That senile old cuck must have forgot the 8 years he was vice president under Obama, where the Republicans fought tooth and nail on everything. Now with that, let's close up this mofo. In closing, I want to talk about my long-standing love and admiration for what is, in my opinion, the best American sitcom in history, Married with Children. This show, for better or worse, shaped me in so many ways. It was a show that got me and my father to bond. My mother and sister hated the show with a passion, like I think most women of that time, unless the really cool ones that can understand satire. I decided to start rewatching the series because I could not remember if I have seen every episode, but I also couldn't remember if I have ever seen the series chronologically. Because I grew up with Married to Children basically wrapping up. The show ran, I believe, from 87 to 1997. So I really only saw the last, I would say, 5 or so years of the show live. The rest was in syndication. It's one of the few shows that I can watch over and over again, and I still burst out into just loud laughter. There's episodes that I've seen probably 20 times that still make me laugh like I'm watching it for the first time. I still stand by that statement that this is the best sitcom in American history. I don't think people understand how revolutionary the show was back in 87. Now, having unhappily married couple and having a show revolve around that was not new. But the subject matter, the insults, the fact that the man and the woman had equal insults, equal jokes, and that not any of the 4 main characters, Ed O'Neill, Christina Applegate, Katie Seagal, and David Faustino, who played Al Bundy, Kelly Bundy, Peggy, and Bud Bundy, none of them were good people. None of them had much redeeming qualities. And then the neighbors, Marcy with her first husband Steve, played by David Garrison, and then later Jefferson Darcy, played by Ted McGinley. But yeah, she was Marcy Rhodes and became Marcy Darcy. And of course, Buck the dog. But every single one of the Bundys are just white trash, asshole people. And we love them for it. The daughter's a slut. The son is a horn dog. The wife is a sexually depraved housewife that doesn't do anything. And the husband hates himself. His family hates his life because he was once the star football player. And now he's a shoe salesman in a mall. I mean, it takes a idea, basically the Honeymooners, and completely updates it and upgrades it, in my opinion. For example, the first season in 1987, there were episodes joking about vibrators, erectile dysfunction. Kelly, the daughter, was talking about having sex, and she was supposedly playing a 15 or 16-year-old. Bud, who's playing, I believe, an 11 or 12-year-old, was openly talking about trying to get laid and everything. And it was just so funny, and it was real. It was absurdly real, of course. They take a real situation and make it completely over-the-top absurd. But good Christ, is it funny. And, you know, it portrayed the wife, and yes, in not flattering characteristics, but then in other ways, she was ahead of her time in things. There was a lot of feminism in this show. Now, true, because it was from the 80s and 90s, there is some choice words that may upset some of our more sensitive kids these days. But for those of us that grew up with this stuff and knew what they were meaning by some of those choice words and choice phrases, it was all in humor, and you not exactly are looking at the Bundys as fucking heroes. So when Al Bundy's being racist towards the French or against the Chinese or against the Mexicans, you have to know, yeah, but he's fucking Al Bundy. Who cares what he has to think? So his racism and sexism is hilarious because he's such a loser, and you are knowing that he's not going to make it in life. You're rooting against him, but then you're rooting for him at some times, and it's just an excellent show. So I'm rewatching it. I'm about halfway through the third season, and I am loving it. And I can honestly tell you, for a show that I held in such high esteem, there was so far about 3 episodes, I think, off the top of my head, maybe 4 or even 5, that I have not seen yet. So you know what? I don't give out this grade very often, but I will say Married to the Children is the rare 10 out of 10 TV show, let alone a sitcom. Now, the laugh track does get a little annoying, but you know, it only bothered me for maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and now I'm into it. It doesn't matter. Because nowadays, laugh tracks are so cringy. I don't even know new shows have them anymore. And I wish you could turn them off, honestly. I don't know why streaming services doesn't give you that option. Maybe because it's built into the production. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You'll get over it. So if you've never seen the show and you're looking to start kind of a retro TV show, give Married with Children a chance. There's a reason why the mass majority of the cast went on to future hits. They were already stars because of the show, but Ed O'Neill, who played Al Bundy, the main star of all 261 episodes of this show, also was in a bunch of big shows and movies. Modern Family, there you go. Christina Applegate, who I know probably ushered in millions and millions of men into puberty playing Kelly Bundy. I don't need to tell you, because Christina Applegate is a very well-respected and probably one of the most talented, comedic, and dramatic actresses out there. Of course, Katie Sagal, who played Peggy, was on, Sons of Anarchy, another great show, and a bunch of other shit, too. Katie Sagal, mostly in TV. I don't know if she's in many films, unlike Ed O'Neill and Christina Applegate. But you cannot look me in the face and tell me Katie Sagal did not have a hit after Married to Children. She had multiple. She was on Futurama, cocksucker. Now, David Faustino, who played Bud, he really didn't do anything after the show, but he said he wanted that. He said he basically retired and was happy just living with his kid and wife. And yeah, I choose to believe him. And Amanda Beers, who played Marcy, I think she went more into the production after the show. So again, she had some success there. Can't really speak to David Garrison or Ted McGinley, but just check out the show, and the amount of A-plus celebrities now and then that made their cameos on Married to the Children. I mean, the guy that's on Bones and Angel, what the hell is that guy? David Boreanaz or some bullshit? He was on this show. Matt LeBlanc before Friends was on this show. I mean, you look at the actors that got their break on Married to the Children. I mean, your head will go numb. This show is excellent. And the only reason I decided to binge watch Married to the Children is because I finally finished. Well, I'm not finished because the show is still on, but I'm now up to date with The Simpsons. Like most people from my generation, I thought The Simpsons were getting stale in, I would say, the early 2000s, late 90s, and anything after that was just an abortion. But watching it now through 35-year-old eyes, I gotta tell you, yeah, it got a little bit worse, but that's only because we grow up. We have nostalgia for our childhood when everything was perfect, when America was great. But yeah, The Simpsons in the early 90s, when I was a kid, there was nothing better on television that was animated. And of course, you think those shows are perfect because you were a child then. And then as you grow up, anything that comes out can never be as good as what it once was. But I'm here to tell you people that I have watched every single Simpsons episode from beginning to finish. All 34 or 33 seasons. I'll tell you exactly. Hold on, let me go ahead and pull this up here. The Simpsons. Damn, 1989. Wow, that's when... So, actually, Married to the Children predates The Simpsons by at least a year and a half. 731 episodes I watched of The Simpsons. Now, let's pump the brakes here. It took me... I think I started rewatching The Simpsons because I was dating a girl that she was doing that. She had never watched the show. She was a little bit younger than me, and she didn't grow up watching it. And I started watching some episodes with her, and I said, you know what, fuck it, let me start from scratch. And I want to say that was back in September of last year. And so I finished it in July. So yeah, it took me about, I would say 9 to 10 months. But I watched all 731 episodes. And was I right? 30-something seasons? 33 seasons? There's 33 seasons. And that I caught the newest episodes on Hulu. The 34th season is due out in September. And I got to tell you, people, it holds up. It holds up. I don't think there was many episodes that I did not at least chuckle a few times. I definitely chuckled and laughed every episode. And I got to tell you, the show kept up. They were making fun of Clinton. They were making fun of Bush. They were making fun of Obama. Not so much. There was a lot of woke episodes that were real brutal during those 8 years. They definitely were shitting on Trump. And they haven't quite started shitting on Biden yet. I don't think they have those new episodes out. But to watch The Simpsons satirical take on the last 20 years when I stopped watching, because I don't remember watching The Simpsons after high school, and I graduated in 2004. I may have watched an episode here and there, but I didn't watch every episode like I used to for at least 15, 20 years. And I gotta tell you, people, it holds up. Much like Married to the Children, and even more so because it's still on the air, so it's still topical. So, if you're looking for a little nostalgia, watch The Simpsons. It's a great background show. It's a great show to have if you're in the kitchen, or you're exercising, or you're watering your 1,000 houseplants like I do. It's cool. And if you're stoned and you really don't feel like watching a movie or starting a new show, you just want some noise that you can fall asleep to, The Simpsons are perfect, baby. So yeah, Married to the Children, 10 out of 10. The Simpsons, I'm giving them a 10 out of 10. But with that, take it sleazy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Treat others as you want to be treated. And don't be a judgmental cunt. Peace out. I love y'all, and I'll see you guys around the bend. I don't know what that means, around the bend. Oh, like the bend in the road? Oh, okay, that makes sense. Like you're leaving and you're walking down the bend. I get it. Okay, that makes sense. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Oh yeah, Shakespeare. Fuck yeah.